Former Syracuse and Team USA attacker Alyssa Murray Cometti has plenty of experience when it comes to seeing how parents interact with players and coaches, and she's now sharing her thoughts on that topic with the lacrosse world. The two-time Tewaaraton finalist, who was also an assistant at Stony Brook, Michigan and Yale, wrote an opinion piece for Inside Lacrosse titled, "I hope you don't think I'm one of those crazy parents, but..." And I recently spoke to her. What made you want to write it in the first place?
I think just a really tumultuous recruiting season, watching kids commit and, maybe not commit and, hearing stories and just a crazy year and how that's been impacted. It's got everyone on edge in so many different ways. So just kind of thinking back about my experiences and how I think parents can play a role positively instead of negative necessarily.
As you mentioned, lacrosse parents, sports athletes, parents in general can get a little bit aggressive sometimes, just caught up in all of it. Was there any part of you that was like maybe just stay out of it, but you just really felt like you needed to get this message across?
Well, I think it's something that we all talk about as coaches and just involved in the sport all the time. And, one of the things I mentioned is that like all these parents have the best intentions in mind and, they're just into it. And so, you can't necessarily blame them for wanting to see their kids succeed. It's just how you go about it is really important. And so, yeah, sure, I've definitely not said things at times, but I feel like it's important to have the parents, look back on them, on their actions and, evaluate, am I wanting this for my kid more than they want it? Or is there something I can change to make this relationship between the sport, my child, and myself more positive so we can have a better experience altogether?
Now, as a coach, when you see these situations kind of going on, how do you go about it? How do you address the parents?
Well, I'm sure all the parents that are a part of my club definitely know. I mean, I'm not very shy about that. It's especially recruiting wise, it's the player's job to get recruited. If they're not putting their best foot forward, then that speaks volumes. But, just encouraging the player to be a self advocate, whether that's in the recruiting landscape or just communicating with their coaches. My high school team knows that I don't want to hear from their parents if they're going to be late to a practice because they had to retake a test. That to me is something that's talked about in the very first meeting. It's not an acceptable way to handle the situation. I want to have a relationship with the player first, and of course the parents are important too, and I want to have relationships with them, but I'm not coaching the parents on the field. And so it's important to be able to communicate with me and the other coaches.
Now, you had mentioned in your article that growing up, you were a bit shy. You were a little bit more quiet. What advice would you give to a kid that maybe is a little bit more shy or timid and that needs to advocate for themselves, but doesn't necessarily know how to?
Oh, I mean, it's hard. It's not easy to start. Talking about calling my soccer coach and looking up his number in the phone book is such a vivid memory. When I was a third grader, and I would be so nervous to get on the call, but the more you do it, the easier it gets. And I think, especially now, I'm sure so many people have watched The Social Network or Social Dilemma and see all these issues that teens and young kids today are dealing with and hiding behind the phone. So these face-to-face conversations are that much more difficult for them. But as you get older, you need to be able to have them. So the earlier you start and the more that you're encouraged from the get-go, the easier it gets.
After writing this really awesome article, to be frank, what kind of response have you gotten?
I mean, just, I think that the coaches and, peers have mentioned that they've experienced something similar in some regard. And, it's not to, put down any parents or anything like that. I mean, I even say, it's your natural instinct to try and provide the easiest life possible for your kid, and you want to just, don't want to see them struggle. And as a coach, I totally understand that, but it's just knowing when to take a step back and when to, you know, let your kid blossom in a difficult situation for them, because it will help them grow so much, and that's on and off the lacrosse field.
Alyssa, thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you.
Thank you.